Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. And hey, if this is your first time here, why not stay for this whiskey review? See if you learned something, see if you like the vibe. We are doing these 3 times a week on top of a lot of other content. So if you like what you see here, come back for some more. Let's become whiskey friends long term here. So for today's whiskey review, we're going tubing. I love when we go tubing. These are fun. I love the marketing behind a good tube. But for today, we have an E.H. Taylor single barrel. So, a couple months ago, I did do a review on the E.H. Taylor small batch. That's the first time that I really sat down with a small batch with the intent to deconstruct it in the way that I did. I really didn't walk away too favorable for that review, but this is the single barrel. This is a totally different game. So I want to talk about what it means to have that gap between the small batch up to the single barrel and then the barrel proof at some point. We can do that review later. So let's discuss the E.H. Taylor single barrel today and break this one down. Thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. So we're going to get into this one here. Let's pour a little bit of this. Now, hey, taterish or not, I think these tubes are awesome. I love these E.H. Taylor tubes. It's exciting to open up an E.H. Taylor tube. Even if I don't particularly like the small batch, when I actually break it down, we're going to get into the single barrel this time. I still get excited to open up the small batch too. Buffalo Trace just knows their marketing, and that's what it comes down to. All right, so I'm going to put this one back in there. Now, this one is just a regular single barrel. This isn't a store pick or anything. I have been fortunate pretty consistently somehow to get my hands on an E.H. Taylor single barrel, I'd say about once a year. My hotspots have been either Chicago or Northern Kentucky for these. And I've yet to pay anything more than MSRP. $80 is, I'm pretty sure, the most I've paid so far for an E.H. Taylor single barrel. So when it comes to later on the review, we talk about value. I mean, in my mind at least, it's obtainable for 80, just being lucky. And I'm not playing off any relationships or anything like that. That's just pure right place, right time stuff. So for this E.H. Taylor single barrel, this is bottled in bond, which means it's 100 proof. Now, it is not age stated whatsoever, so you're just going to have to surmise the age, whatever you want to do, estimate the age. I don't know, 8 years maybe is going to be my guess going into this. We'll see off this fresh tasting that I just poured here. But it is 100 proof, E.H. Taylor, the mash bill number 1. And later on, we'll go over the barrel proof. But the more that I break these down, the more that I think they ladder up probably correctly based on their price and based on their height. So let's get into this one. We are going to break down the nose, and then we're going to get into the palate, and then we'll get into the scores. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Cheers, everybody. Oh man, the cherry on this thing is leaping off the glass. Oh my gosh, cherry for days. That is ridiculous. It's a cherry cola or maybe like a cherry root beer. This nice velvety oak. The oak almost has that man. It almost bring me right back to like a tour of Buffalo Trace. It's like walking into a rick house, kind of an oak. So if you've gone on a tour and walked through a rick house, yeah, I'd remind you of that. Man, this nose is really good. There's a lot of sweetness on the nose too. The sugariness of the sweetness takes me back to a what's it called? Fun dip. So the fun dip, but not necessarily the dip itself, but the stick. So you got the fun dip and you got like the two different packets. You got the stick on the one side and then the powder on the other, and then you lick the stick and dip it in the powder. I don't know why I'm explaining this. If you know what fun dip is, you get the point. Man, you know, the cherry there, it's turning into a raspberry a little bit. I don't know if I've ever gotten raspberry off of a Buffalo Trace like that. Usually it's just the straight cherry, but it's got the sourness of the raspberry. Yeah, a bit of molasses there. I think that's about it. I think that's all I'm going to lift off the nose, though. That's a pretty delightful nose. I could spend a lot of time with this nose. All right, let's get to the taste. Cheers, everybody. Okay. The most disappointing aspect about this particular pour is going to be up front. I know it's 100 proof. It just feels watered down. The mouth feels not quite there. Even the flavors aren't there initially. I'd almost equate it to a watered down Kool-Aid growing up. Like sometimes you get that Kool-Aid mixture just right. The Kool-Aid powder to sugar to water ratio. Bit too much water in this one. Hmm. I didn't give a note to the Kool-Aid that I mentioned, but I think it's grape Kool-Aid, just to be specific there. Mid palate though, man, I just said grape. It's kind of a carry cordial as well. So you get the chocolate, that cream, the cherry, maybe it's a grape cordial. Never had a grape cordial before. Oh man. So the one thing I really, really do appreciate with the single barrels versus the small batch is a lot more oak. These got more age on them. The small batch to me comes off spiky in places, maybe 6 years old. I think this is like 8, 10 years old if I were to surmise. Like if I was to estimate, guess. I don't know. It comes across older when you step up to the E.H. Taylor single barrel. It has this velvety oak. That rickhouse taste is there too. Like that oakiness is like just straight rickhouse, dripping barrels. Mm, man, I'd even equate it like if you haven't had an E.H. Taylor single barrel, but you have had a Buffalo Trace single barrel that was really good. Sometimes you can get those age stated on the labels and they're 8 years old. It's like one of those proofed up. It's like it went through a dose of HRT. It went through a cycle or something. All right, let's get into the finish. Okay. Man, the vanilla cream on the finish really overcomes. everything else. It's just waves upon waves of vanilla. Now, keep in mind, this is single barrel, so I am talking about this particular barrel. But man, that vanilla wave. That's a nice finish. It's all vanilla, but man, it's really, really pleasant and nice. All right, one last sip and let's get into the scores. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that one. All right, let's bring up the official scores here. So here on the site, we do break down our scores in a 3-tier scoring system. There's a whole bunch of metrics going on behind the scenes, but ultimately, all the metrics get rolled up into a flavor score, an experience score, a value score, and then you get a total score. So for the flavor score, that's just how enjoyable it was through each part of the experience. That one, it got 80% of the points. It really is just very good throughout. I think maybe the front of the palate held it back a little bit with that watered down Kool-Aid sensation, but everywhere else, it's bringing some really good flavors. Experience score, this one does pull it down a bit more at the 78. I do think that watered down nature, the mouthfeel, it's just not quite there. And then even the finish is decent. So that's kind of the experience score there. And then the value score, I am going to rate this. I've never paid more than 80 for this. I know that I'm just fortunate for that. And that's also around MSRP. That's fine for the price. I mean, $60 to $70 to $80 for this single barrel. Yeah, I'd be good with that. Now, that's where the secondary market comes into play. I would not pay the secondary asking price for this, even if it was my very first one. Just be patient and play the long game. I think this is a bottle where you play the long game. But ultimately, the total score on this one gave it an 80 out of 100, which is a great pour. And in terms of recommending, I'd recommend everyone try this. I think this is a very, very approachable pour that a lot of people are going to love and adore, quite frankly, because it's so approachable at that 100 proof and it's got so much flavor too. It's just accessible and great at the same time. So that's where I give it the 10 out of 10, because I think this checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. So do I plan to buy another? Yeah. If I'm so lucky and the year-to-year luck continues, I will definitely buy another of the E.H. Taylor single barrel. So that gives my thoughts on the E.H. Taylor single barrel. Once again, prefacing that with MSRP, I would not spend secondary prices. I would perfectly be fine with the MSRP prices. So just kind of keep that in mind as you interpret what I just said. So let me know in the comments, have you tried this when it comes to the E.H. Taylor single barrel? What did you think? Is your single barrel matching up with mine in terms of the flavor notes? And would you buy it again? Very curious. Well, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be